Hello and welcome to What's in the Night Sky for December 2022. I'm Hayley, and this month we have not one but two occultations of planets by the moon in store for us. We have the planet Mars reaching opposition, the Geminids meteor shower, and the constellation of the month, which is Ursa Major. Let's start with what I would consider to be the highlight of the month, which is the planet Mars. These are the best viewing conditions that you'll have for Mars for the next couple of years. It will make its closest approach to Earth on the 1st of December, which means it will have its largest apparent size on the 1st, and then it reaches opposition on the 8th. And a reminder that opposition is when the planet appears directly opposite to the sun in the sky and the Earth is in the middle. And for Mars, that occurs once every couple of years. If we take a look at Mars, you can see here on the 1st, I'm at 5 p.m, so not long after the sun has set. Mars is already up and will be visible all night throughout the month. So whatever time of night you can get out, you should be able to find Mars. It's quite low here just after sunset on the 1st. If we just move time onwards a little bit, the night will get a bit darker and Mars will get nice and high. So if you can observe it when it's high in the sky, then that will be better in terms of trying to make out features on the surface if you are using a telescope. Even a small telescope with the viewing conditions for Mars at the moment will probably enable you to pick out some surface detail. You might be able to spot a polar cap, you might be able to see some dark features on the surface. I spoke more about observing Mars with a telescope in last month's video, so if you're interested in that, then you can go back and have a look at November's video to see how to observe Mars with a telescope. If you're observing with your naked eye, then you're looking out for a bright object with an orangey hue to it. You can also try with binoculars as well. That will enhance the colour that you can see. And Mars will reach a magnitude of -1.9, which is really bright, brighter than Saturn. So it should be fairly easy to spot, even if you are a beginner, even if you've not managed to spot Mars before. This is a really, really good time to do it. Let's have a look now at what happens with Mars and the Moon as we go through the first week in December. So you can see that the separation between Mars and the Moon is getting smaller as we head to that lunar occultation of Mars. An occultation is when a larger body in space passes in front of a smaller one, causing the smaller one to disappear from view. And that happens with Mars and the Moon on the morning of the 8th. So you'll have to get up quite early. It will begin at approximately 4:57 in the morning. The exact time depends on your exact location, so it could vary by a few minutes either side. So if you want to know exactly the time that it will happen for you, you can use some planetarium software like Stellarium and have a look for your location. It's a good idea to go out a bit before anyway, to give yourself a chance to acclimatise to the dark and set up any equipment that you might be using. So you can see here I'm at midnight on the 8th, and Mars and the Moon are already looking really close together. So it will be a really nice sight to see even before the occultation itself happens, just to see these two so close together in the sky. You can have a look with a pair of binoculars and get them in the same field of view. I think binoculars is a really good way to observe this event, because with the naked eye, you'll still be able to observe, and I would encourage you to if you don't have access to a pair of binoculars. But with a pair of binoculars, you'll just be able to see a little bit more. You'll be able to pick out Mars a little bit more easily, because although Mars is bright, the full moon is very bright. So having the aid of a pair of binoculars will be helpful. You could also use a telescope. Just be careful that if you're using a high magnification, that you're looking at the right region of the moon to make sure that you don't miss it. So if I move time onwards now, and you can see we're closing in as we head towards 4:57. You could have a go at taking a photograph of it as well if you have camera equipment available. So this view that I'm showing you now is what Mars and the moon would look like through a pair of 10 by 50 binoculars, so a magnification of 10 times. Any pair of binoculars that you have at home is good to use for astronomy, so don't worry too much about the binoculars. And you can see that as we get to 4:57, it's starting to disappear. It will take about 30 seconds to completely disappear, so you should be able to watch that happen. And then as we go over the next hour, Mars will make its way behind the moon and will pop out again almost exactly an hour later. So here it's starting to be visible again around 4:53, 4:54. I'm really looking forward to this event, so I'm hoping for clear weather where I am, and I hope that you get clear weather as well if you're going to go and try and observe it. Mars is not the only planet that is occulted by the moon in December. There's actually another one, which is the planet Uranus, and that occurs on the 5th. So it will happen before the Mars event and will be much more difficult to observe. So if you manage to observe the Uranus occultation on the 5th, then you'll definitely be all set for the 8th. So let's go to the 5th. And this happens at around 4:50 in the afternoon. So one of the reasons that it's difficult is it's only a little bit after sunset, and Uranus is a really faint planet anyway. It's very difficult to spot with the naked eye. I would say almost impossible to spot with the naked eye, and it isn't an easy target with binoculars. If you've never seen Uranus before, this could be a good chance for you to actually spot it. When you look at Uranus with a pair of binoculars or a small telescope, it looks like a greenish star. With a telescope, you might be able to make out a bit of a disc. I wouldn't try to observe the occultation without any equipment at all, because I think that the moon will be too bright and you won't be able to see Uranus. So minimum would be a pair of binoculars for this one. And let's just have a look how that happens. In fact, let's put a binocular view on again, the same as we did for Mars. And you can see Uranus disappearing just at around 4:50 and then reappearing again at around 5:20, a bit before 5:20 actually, around 5:15. So it's a much shorter duration, the occultation, than the Mars one, only lasting about 25 minutes as opposed to an hour. Definitely a good thing to go and try and see if you do have a pair of binoculars or a telescope handy and you have clear skies in the very early evening on the 5th of December. I want to move away from the moon and the planets now. So your Moon Watch challenge and your Planet Watch challenge are one and the same this month, which is to observe a planetary occultation by the moon. If we move on to the night of the 13th of December, and I'm just going to go later so it's nice and dark. Night of the 13th, morning of the 14th, we have the Geminids meteor shower. It's a well-known meteor shower which has its radiant in the constellation of Gemini, the twins. This year, though, the moon is going to be really in the way. So you can see, if we take a look at the moon's down here in Leo, and you can see that it's over half illuminated, and the radiant of the meteor shower is up here. So you will have the moon washing out some Geminids this year. It's not the best year to observe them, but still, if you want to observe a meteor shower this month, it's a good idea to go out around the 13th, 14th, see if you can spot any Geminids. As always with meteor showers, best thing to do is to allow your eyes to adapt to the dark. Make sure you're really warm and comfortable. If you have somewhere where you can sit back on, maybe on a reclining chair, or you can lie down on something like a sun lounger, have a hot drink and lie down, watch the sky and enjoy the show. You don't have to look towards the radiant of the meteor shower, so you can look anywhere. If you look near the radiant, then the meteor trails will be shorter. If you look somewhere else, then they'll be longer. But wherever you look in the sky, you should be able to see meteors. But actually, let's see if we can add a few more planets to our list for December. So we've talked about Uranus and Mars already. If we look towards the south just after sunset, so I'm going to go to around 5 p.m, throughout December, you'll be able to see Saturn and Jupiter, and of course Mars as well. So the three of these planets forming a line in the early evening sky. with Jupiter being the brightest, followed by Mars, followed by Saturn. If we continue our journey through the month towards Christmas Day, 25th of December, and have a look just after the sun has set. So I'm going to go backwards in time a little bit. And on the 25th, just after sunset, we've got a very thin crescent moon. Let's take a look. Really thin crescent moon, and Mercury and Venus all visible in the southwest. I've got a very inconvenient tree on my horizon. You will need to make sure that you have a clear horizon, so find somewhere where there aren't any trees or buildings in the way and see if you can spot these three. It's a good way to spot Mercury because you've got Venus and the moon, which are a little bit brighter to help you find it. Be careful that you don't observe before the sun has set. You need to make sure that the sun is out of the way because that will enable you to see them, and it also will mean that you're not going to damage your eyes, especially if you're planning to sweep around with a pair of binoculars to see if you can find them. If we head further into the evening and go to Boxing Day, the crescent moon is here and very close to planet Saturn. And if we keep going, when we get to the 29th, that waxing crescent moon, so it's a much bigger crescent now, is quite close to the planet Jupiter. So there's an opportunity there to see the moon quite close to Saturn and then quite close to Jupiter. Let's go to our constellation of the month now, which is Ursa Major, or the Great Bear. And Ursa Major contains one of the most recognisable shapes in the night sky, which is the shape of the Big Dipper or the Plough, which is an asterism being a collection of stars within a constellation. So if you can find the Big Dipper, then you've actually found the constellation of Ursa Major. Put the art on. You can see Ursa Major depicted as a bear. You can see Ursa Minor close by, the little bear. There are lots of tales associated with Ursa Major. For the ancient Greeks, Ursa Major represents the sea nymph Callisto, and Callisto and Zeus, the king of the gods, had a son called Arcas, and Hera, the wife of Zeus, turned Callisto into a bear when she heard of this and banished her into the forest. One day, Arcas was out hunting in the forest and came across his mother as a bear. He didn't know who she was and drew his spear and was about to attack her. Zeus saw that happening and intervened, sending a great whirlwind which blew them both into the heavens, where Callisto became Ursa Major and Arcas became Ursa Minor. There are lots of versions of that story. Depending on the one that you read, minor details change. There are also lots of other stories around Ursa Major. The Romans called the constellation the Seven Plough Oxen. In China, Japan and Korea, the plough is known as a ladle. And in Hindu legend, the seven brightest stars represent seven sages. Native American legends say that the bowl is the bear and the handle stars are warriors chasing the bear. And there are lots and lots of other tales from all around the world about this very prominent constellation. Ursa Major and the plough are also really, really useful in terms of finding your way around the night sky. If you can find the plough, then you can start to find your way around the night sky and find other constellations and objects that are a little bit harder to find. The first thing to find using Ursa Major is Polaris, the pole star. So use these two stars in the plough and join them together in a line and follow them to take you to the pole star. You can also use Ursa Major to find Cassiopeia, the Queen, and then if you can find Cassiopeia, you can also find the Andromeda Galaxy, which is the most distant object visible to the naked eye at 2.5 million light years away. That is to find Polaris, as I just showed you, and just keep going, and you'll see that we have the W shape of Cassiopeia, the Queen, over here, and then Andromeda over here. And if we zoom in on the area around Andromeda, you can see the Andromeda Galaxy, which looks like a smudge in a pair of binoculars, and you need a dark sight, or an even fainter smudge with your naked eye, and you need a dark sight to be able to spot it. The other things that you can find using the Big Dipper, I'm going to go a bit later into the night, and you can see that it's starting to look upside down now as it rotates around. And if you follow the handle of the Big Dipper, follow the arc to Arcturus, which is the red giant star, and the brightest star in the constellation of Boötes. And we could go on and use the Big Dipper to go further and further. And the technique is known as star hopping, and it's, even if you have a telescope that has a computerized go-to system on it, it's really good to learn how to star hop to find different things in the night sky. The last thing I want to do in Ursa Major is to set you a deep sky challenge for December, and that is to locate a double star. And that is the double star of Mizar and Alcor, which is this star in the handle. And if you zoom in, you can see that it's actually a double star system, and it is visible to the naked eye. Most people can distinguish them, that there's actually two stars there with the naked eye. So the first thing to do is to go out and see if you can do that. If you can't, then you can have a look with a pair of binoculars if you're struggling. They're often called the Horse and the Rider, and they're one of the most famous double stars in the sky. Really good one to start with if you've never seen a double star before. And it's actually a really complicated system, and our understanding of it has evolved over the years. Mizar is actually a pair of two binaries. So discovered in 1617 and then in 1857. So it's actually a 4-star system. And in 2009, it was found that Alcor is also a binary and is gravitationally bound to the 4-star system of Mizar. So when you look at these, although you're only going to see two, you are looking at a really complicated system of 6 stars. Let's finish by having a look at how to spot Santa, otherwise known as the International Space Station. There is a really good International Space Station pass on the morning of the 25th of December, starting at around 6:55. Let's go to 6:53. So if you have clear skies on the 25th and you head out and look towards the west, just coming up to 7 o'clock, then you might be able to spot the ISS coming over. And if I just move time on, there it is. And you can watch for 6 or 7 minutes as the ISS makes its way across the night sky, or the early morning sky, until it disappears again in the east. That brings me to the end of our tour of the night sky for December, and I hope that you get clear skies for all of the events that are coming up this month.